Offenses is manslaughter, 2 counts. Sentencing date is December 20, 2010. Sentenced to 25 years hard labor. Parole date is January 24th, 2029. Good time is September 2nd, 2029. Full term is 10/25/2032. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you very much. Mr. Martin, my name is Tony Marabella. I'm going to be asking you some questions today. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
How old are you, sir?
32 years old.
And you've been in prison for how long now?
14 years.
Tell me what happened. How did you get involved in this crime? Tell me what you and this other fella were doing. Tell me how this happened, that these men were killed and burned.
To be honest with you, I was hanging with the wrong crowd. Well, hanging with the wrong dude.
Can I get
Huh?
can I get 2 number 4s?
You still talking?
Number 4? Just the South.
I'm not sure who that is or what that is, but
He's at McDonald's.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Marabella.
okay, Mr. Martin, go ahead.
Okay, I was hanging with the wrong person and during the time of the crime, but I was helping the victim. Instead of me helping him, I was helping the victim. I was committing first aid to stop the victims from bleeding to death. Not only do I say that, but the firemen that got on the scene say someone tried to commit first aid on the victim to stop them from bleeding to death.
So you're saying you just were there. You didn't do anything. You tried to help the victims. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, sir.
Because I got police reports that suggest otherwise.
My police report, the only reason I was convicted of manslaughter is because of a felony theft. That's because my fall partner, he used to stay with the people and he led me to believe that the stuff that he told me to take to the car was his, but they couldn't prove that it wasn't his. But like I say, I was only convicted of manslaughter because of a felony theft, not for killing nobody.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir.
That crime was horrible. You were involved in it. You're not going to accept absolute responsibility for what you did. You were convicted by a jury of manslaughter. They listened to all of the things you're trying to tell me now. I'm not trying to retry your case. I'm trying to make a determination as to whether or not you've accepted responsibility for the very horrible crime that was committed here.
I accept the responsibility, sir.
You don't sound like you are.
I accept it, but I'm just letting you know that I was convicted of manslaughter because of a felony theft.
You were convicted of manslaughter because 2 men died and you were involved. You aided and abetted in that. That's why you were convicted. Don't tell me what the law is. I know what the law is, and I know why you were convicted. Now, let's move on. Were you on drugs or alcohol when you were there that night?
No, sir.
Do you use drugs or alcohol, or did you use drugs and alcohol?
No, sir.
I noticed that you've lost 323 days of good time. Why is that?
The environment I was in the jails I was in, it was bloody. Like they do a lot of stabbing and all that. So it really was the environment I was in that made me lose.
So again, it's the people you hang with that ain't you. You don't take no responsibility for what you do. It's everybody else around you. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, sir. I'm not saying that it wasn't me. I'm just saying the environment that I was in. It was me all the way. I'm taking all responsibility for that. It was me all the way, but it's just the environment I was in.
How much education do you have?
10th grade.
Now, you are currently bedridden. It's my understanding that was it in 2018, you jumped off of a cot and hurt yourself. Is that what happened?
No, I was jumped on by some officers at Lake Providence and maced and doing the sail and fell on the back of my neck. And like a year or so later, by me jumping up and down off a bunk, hurt my spine again. But I fell back. This come from me falling back on my neck after being maced and doing the sail and fell back on the back of my neck.
Tell me about what your physical ability is now. What are you prohibited from doing? Can you walk at all?
No, sir.
Can you move your arms and legs?
My left side
Your left arm only?
and my leg.
And you let both legs or just one leg?
There's one. My left side of arm and leg.
Can you get around in a wheelchair?
No, sir, not by myself.
Well, I'm with assistance. Can you get around in a wheelchair with assistance?
Yes, sir.
You know, Mr. Martin, I understand you've got some physical issues, and I'm very concerned about that, and I'm sympathetic to you. But you know, you're not taking responsibility for what you did. You're blaming everybody for everything else. You have the ability to be able to be obnoxious if you want to. I'm a little concerned about letting you go to some facility or some other place somewhere and acting up. Tell me why I shouldn't be worried about that.
Because be honest with the I've changed. That was the old me. That was years. I haven't had a write up before in 3-4 years since I left Winfield, which was a bloody.
Well, I mean, how long have you been paralyzed?
I've been paralyzed since 18.
Well, you had write-ups in 17
in
for
2017.
fighting. So I mean, you haven't had any write-ups because you've been paralyzed. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
How have you changed? I mean, I don't hear you accepting responsibility for this horrible crime. You can say all day long you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, but a jury of 12 people decided otherwise.
I'm not saying that I don't take responsibility for the crime. I feel sorry for the people and their family, but I only tried to help them. I did not kill nobody. I was just with, like I say, with the wrong dude at the wrong time. I'm not saying that I don't feel sorry for the family and the people and what happened to them, but the only thing I did was try to save them. That's all. The only thing I'm trying to explain.
Mr. Martin, you wouldn't be in prison if that were true.
My paperwork showed. My
The
paperwork.
jury says otherwise. The facts say otherwise.
I never went to a jury, sir.
You pled guilty?
Yes, sir. I pled guilty to manslaughter because
Rather than run the risk of going to trial for second-degree murder.
I pled guilty to manslaughter only because of a felony theft. That's why I pled guilty to manslaughter. That's in my record.
Do we have any medical people there that can shed some information on Mr. Martin's condition?
Yes, sir. My name's Cindy Park. I'm the nurse practitioner that takes care of Derrick.
Hi, Ms. Park. Ms. Park, I've viewed your video and tell us a little bit more about Mr. Martin. I think you've heard some of my concerns that I have. I mean, I'm not at all challenging his physical issues. I've got some concerns about whether or not I feel comfortable granting him some relief here. So tell me a little bit about his physical condition. And if you know anything about his personal behavior, let me know.
Yes, sir. You know, Derrick Derrick presented to us about 2 years ago. And he is completely pretty much bedridden. He does get up at times. We require a special lift to get him up to put him in his wheelchair. He does have some left arm movement, but it is not a complete strength. It's definitely weaker. His right leg is stiff. His left leg, even though he has some movement on it, it's not going to be able to help him walk, but he can move it. He frequently has leg spasms because of the paralysis. All this happened when he had a neck injury and he underwent emergency surgery, and as a result of that, he just never regained function. But from a medical standpoint, he requires to be turned. He is able to give himself a bath of upper body, but for the most part, the orderlies need to change him, clean him, help him dress. But as I say, we get him up in the horror lift. Physical therapy has worked with him regularly. There's just minimal improvement of his functional status. His condition is going to be permanent. Understandably, he is at times demeaning and demanding with the nurses, but quite honestly, any person that's had a spinal cord injury, it's phases that they go through, and he just hasn't worked through that phase. I suspect that he's in a little bit in the anger phase, and over time that will get better. But for the most part, his condition is permanent. He will need major assistance for the remainder of his life.
How long have you been personally working with him?
I have taken care of him since he came to Angola, and he's lived in a skilled nursing unit, which is my unit, which is assisted major, almost like a nursing home unit with people that have significant needs, probably about 2 years.
Okay. And during that 2 years, aside from the fact that sometimes he's demeaning and those kinds of things, how has his behavior been towards you and the staff?
There's times when he is angry and angry at us and rude. A lot of times he won't tell us what his problems are, but he'll let his mother or his grandfather know, and that's how we find out. There's times that he's a wonderful patient. And so, to be honest, I just chuck it up to the fact that his life has changed in a very negative way when he was a young man, and he's having to deal with that.
Now, the conclusion that you've reached, the medical conclusion that you've reached, this is something that you've done in conjunction with doctors, other medical professionals, et cetera, that you believe that his paralysis is permanent and will likely remain in the condition he's in?
Yes, sir.
I know it's hard to predict, and it's probably something more for us to make a decision on, but based upon what you've seen from a medical perspective, is there any chance of him harming anyone else unless they come directly in contact with him? I mean, is it possible for him to be able to become ambulatory and attack someone or anything like that?
No, sir. Basically, what he has as a weapon now is verbal.
Do you have any suggestion of where he would go if we were to grant him relief here?
Generally when we do the medical parole, we send him to a place that's an assisted living place, but there's places like Villa. We can try other facilities closer to his home, but Villa is generally where he would be a good candidate for.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate your comments. Mr. Chairman, those are the only questions I have.
Thank you.
Thank
Ms. Pearl?
Yes, ma'am. A young man are you aware of the write-up that you got in May of this year, May of 21?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what was going on that day. It was defiance, disrespect, and disobedience aggravated.
Okay,
May 1st, 21.
okay, when I went to court, they only convict me of the disobedience.
That's true. Yes, that's correct. The 5 and the 7 got dismissed, and you only got the so the 3 staying. That's correct.
I got on my appeal. I was convicted. I was convicted of Rule 7.
Oh, okay. On your okay. I don't have that information. Okay. Okay.
I got a copy of it if you would like to see it.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. You got convicted of Rule 7
Disobedience.
of the disobedience.
Yes.
Okay. What was going on? Can you, as you look back on that, what was going on that day?
To be honest with you, I was angry because of something that went on between me and the nurses. And I asked them a question, but they made it like that I cussed them out and all that, all because of a situation that went on between me and them.
And the write-up said that the nurse gave you your medicine and put the paper around the medicine in your trash can, and you just went off because she put it in the trash can by you.
That's not what happened, man.
Okay, all right. Okay, well that's very concerning for me. So prior to October 2019, when your health started declining, what programs had you taken? Had you worked on your GED?
At many facilities, I have like when I was at Winfield, I took up a GED and I got the good time class living in balance. But
Okay, yeah, that's okay. That's the only one you had.
They stopped it. They stopped it because of something that went on in the system or whatever. But then I was in school also, and they stopped that. And then when they started back, they was talking about that you have to have so many years of left to get into programs of school. So after I got shipped from Winfield, I went to Claiborne. But I was at school in Claiborne, and I ended up having to get shipped because of a problem I was having with one of the staff there. Before it won't make it worse on me, I ended up getting shipped. But I was in school then.
Okay.
I got shipped.
Okay. Now, so call out for the record how long you've served on this 25-year sentence.
14 years.
14 years. Okay. That's all I had. Thanks for answering my questions.
Okay, Mr. Martin,
Yes, sir.
is the nurse, I'd like to speak to the nurse there. She's around.
Yes, sir, I'm right here.
Yes, ma'am. You was talking about the residence plan that he would be able to stay at. There's a Villa Feliciana Medical Complex in Jackson, Louisiana. Is it a lockdown facility, or is it where people can go and come?
I do believe they have both, sir. They have where it can be a lockdown for depending on the situation, and they can come and go also.
You know, I've sat here and listened to Mr. Marabella, Mr. Wise ask questions. You know, one of the things that is real concerning to me about this whole thing, you know, he got a write-up just in 21.
Yes, sir.
Just as quick as he goes over there and starts doing all that stuff, the first thing they're going to do is call and say, hey, y'all come get this guy and you bring him back to prison.
Yes, sir.
And the thing is, I don't want to be the one to have to send him over there a problem over, get this problem here and send it over there, and then we get the problem back like we're tossing the football back and forth.
Yes, sir.
I'm just being straight up with all the family and everything else. This is a very serious crime. He's got to accept responsibility, which he hadn't accepted responsibility on some of the things that he done. Like every time they asked him, son, I didn't do this. I had to feel this. I've done this. I've done that. And then we take him over there, and then we've got another problem over at Villa Nursing Home. That is Mr. Marabella, Ms. Pearl, do y'all agree with me on what I'm saying on this deal here?
Certainly, that's my concern.
And that's what I'm asking you is do you think that he would meet all the requirements and everything to go over there without causing any problem?
I do think that he would meet the requirements from a physical standpoint. I do believe that the way he currently is with the nursing staff, that he will be a challenge for the nursing staff. Him and his family both will be a challenge for the nursing staff wherever he goes, unless he does change.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir.
You know, Mr. Martin, one of the things is, and I hate it dearly about your condition and everything, but you have got to start acting in a better manner around the facility, around nurses and things like that. And that is one of the things we look at. One of the deals we look at, if you've had a disciplinary write-up in the last 12 months, you can be denied. Here you are supposed to be in a hospital bed where you can't cause any problem, and you're still getting write-up. Before that, you had 300 some days of loss of good time. And that's concerning. I don't have any other questions.
I see that there are no further questions, so we will now hear from our support. Can we please hear from Tamara Gray, who's the mother? You have 3 minutes to speak, and please direct your comments to the board.
Hello, this is Tamara Gray, Derrick Morris' mother, and I'm here for his support. I know he might seem like, he's going through, by him being paralyzed and stuff, his attitude and stuff might be a little off and stuff, but I'm here to support him, and I think he's changed a big deal since he's been gone away. And I'm just here for his support.
Thank you. Now, can we please hear from George Martin, who's the grandfather?
Yes, I'm his grandfather, as was mentioned, and I have spoke with Ms. Parks over the months, as well as Miss I can't think of her name, but anyway, the things that they saying that he's doing and what he is doing, I can imagine, being in that position. When he came in, he was walking, and now he's confined to a bed. So he's gonna feel somewhat of disgust, and he can't feel excellent all the time. So I can imagine, just thinking about that kind of helps him to act perhaps in the way you're speaking. But I have personally had Bible studies with him. I know I helped him to appreciate that repentance is one of the things that he needs in order to be forgiven. He accepts that. And I've even tested him, to see if he was reading certain scriptures, and he was able to explain the account in Job, and the fact that I didn't quote him, but he was able to give it to me, like it is. And another thing, I really empathize with Ms. Parks and the crew, because they don't have the facility or the staff to offer one-on-one attention like he needs. I've called down there about 9 or 10 times this month, trying to address some of the problems that he's experiencing, like a infection that he had for over a month. So that shouldn't, that will eventually kill a person, but he needs proper attention, and his mother and I, we're willing to help him and try to get him on his feet and providing the necessary care that he needs, because he needs turning, he needs bathing, dressing, all of those things. And I can imagine, and I'm not downing the system, but they just don't have the staff and personnel to do that. He needs special attention. And he obtained that once he was in prison. So, you know, it's not that it's something that he was asking for, but we're just asking to show empathy, just true empathy, to try to put yourself in his place and see, you know, in our place, because we love him and we want to see him do better. And he understands that what he did, even though he's not speaking the right way he should, probably the way it's coming across, but he has repented. He realized what he did was wrong, and that the only way he will be forgiven by Jehovah is by the fact that he has truly repented from his heart. And God can see hearts, we can't.
Thank you. Can we please hear from Mr. Robert Burns, who's the victim's brother?
Yes, good morning. Robert Burns here. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I don't need to remind the board about the heinousness of this crime. You have two victims here that were beaten, suffocated, and then had the apartment burned. The sight was gruesome. It was horrible. An elderly gentleman at the time, 65 years old, Mr. Stickle, and then my brother, who was 35 at the time. My brother Jerry, speaking of need for the assistance with the activities of daily living, was a quadriplegic in a sip and puff wheelchair. Couldn't move any of his limbs. I noticed listening earlier to Mr. Martin talking about how he provided first aid, or he alleged that he provided first aid. First aid comes after the act has been done. I'm curious to know why he didn't intervene if he was so concerned about the victims here. Intervention would have taken place prior to the death of these two people. My brother needed help with all of his activities of daily living. He was full quadriplegic, not a paraplegic, as is the case here that Mr. Martin's healthcare providers are indicating. Certainly, you're not going to get one-on-one care as they're saying he needs in an assisted living or a nursing home environment. So I'm not sure that either one of those are appropriate. And then the last thing that I would say, and I don't say this with malice or meanness in my heart, but it's just kind of a twist of events here that Mr. Martin, now needing assistance with activities of daily living, is coming before this board for a release, when one of the individuals he was responsible for murdering needed assistance with all of his ADLs. So I would just say that I'm hoping that the board would consider giving Mr. Martin the same consideration, mercy, and compassion that he showed my brother and Mr. Stickle those 14 years ago. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Martin, would you like to make a brief statement before the board votes?
I just wanna ask that y'all just consider my situation and ask that what is one of y'all family members that been through what I've been through? How would y'all feel, or what would y'all do about it? That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Marabella will be voting first.
Mr. Martin, I am very sympathetic to your plight. I I'm very sorry that you are in the medical condition that you are in. I don't think our system of justice wants to punish you by making you disabled in any way. However, you can function. You can speak. You can do dastardly things, and apparently you've done them. As Mr. Wise pointed out, I have some serious concerns sending you to a facility where you have already demonstrated that you can be very obnoxious, very antagonistic towards the nurses, the staff. You had a write-up recently. You said you have changed. You don't have any write-ups since 2017. And that's because you've been confined to the bed. You lost good time because of your actions. You deny your involvement. You want to paint yourself as a person who was trying to help, as opposed to participating in a horrible murder. I do sympathize with you. You're being taken care of where you are now. I have a real fear of sending you somewhere else that may not have the capacity to deal with a person who might be obnoxious or difficult to deal with. Based upon all of those things, Mr. Martin, I just can't grant your request today. That would be my vote, Mr. Wise.
Yes. Ms. Pearl?
Young man, I am encouraged by the Bible lessons and the study that you're doing with your grandfather. I urge you to continue that. But however, today, due to the write-up of May 1st of 21, in my mind, insufficient time served. You served 14 years of 25-year sentence. The victim opposition that's been expressed here at this hearing, and you have law enforcement opposition to your release. My vote today is to deny. But that is my vote, sir. Best wishes to you and your family, as well as the
At this
victim
time, I'm going to
family.
be
I
voting.
appreciate you.
At this time, I'm going to be voting. I vote to deny because the reasons been stated here today. Also, the disciplinary write-up in May 1st of 2021, I would not feel comfortable sending you anywhere else with those disciplinary write-ups, because the problem would eventually have to come back to us. So today, your medical parole has been denied. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're feeling bad for this man, I think that maybe you should wait until I finish the unpacking of this. The irony of this case, or maybe you can call it the karma. I'm not sure if you can get more karma than this. What he's charged with, and we'll go through the details because it's absolutely the viciousness of it, the I'm trying to find the words. Let's just jump in. But he charged with killing a quadriplegic who we saw his brother stand up holding a picture of him as he was speaking, and his caretaker. But not just that he killed him, in the manner that they were killed is simply unimaginable. A Shreveport man faces 2 counts of first-degree murder after the police say he killed a quadriplegic man and his caretaker. 26-year-old Jonathan was arrested on Wednesday, April 25th on a charge of illegal possession of stolen things. Investigators say they found the items taken from 35-year-old Jerry Burns' home inside the Rosalia's motel room. Detectives say after a week of investigating the case, they were able to find enough evidence to charge Rosali with the homicides. On April 24th, firefighters were called to an apartment fire in 3400 block of Meadow Street. Inside, fire crews found the bodies of Burns and his caretaker, 66-year-old Tony Stickle. Investigators think the fire may have been set up by the murderers. Now, wait till you hear the details, right? News 12 has new developments in the case of a quadriplegic and his caretaker murdered and then set on fire to cover up their crime. Shreveport police say they've arrested a person of interest. Detectives went through a West Shreveport hotel room Wednesday where 26-year-old Jonathan had been staying. Jonathan was arrested because police say they found items that belonged to one of the victims. Crime scene investigators walked out of Shreveport hotel room with bags full of evidence. Their focus was room 220, where until Wednesday, 26-year-old Rosali was living. I had a feeling that the guy had some stuff upstairs. Some of the stuff I had given Jerry would be up there, says Vince, a friend of Jerry. Crane went to the hotel Wednesday to help identify items that he says were stolen from Jerry. Tuesday, the quadriplegic and his caretaker, Tony, were discovered dead in Jerry's apartment. Police say Jerry was suffocated with the plastic bag. His caretaker was beaten to death. So if you can think of a more torturous, more sadistic, that's the word I was looking for. He is a quadriplegic. Here he is. His brother is holding up the picture of him. To have men break into your place of living, beat your caretaker, and put a bag over your face while you can do nothing to protect yourself. That is the act. And then to have, as his brother pointed out, just for him to sit here now in a situation and you know what he's even now he's still blaming it on other people. He's saying a year before he was maced by the DOC and beaten up, and then a year later he falls off of his bed because he jumped off his bed. But that's the incident. A full year later, that's the incident that puts him in a wheelchair, but he blames it on the time of the DOC. And anyways, it's you read this and it's like like they're saying feel empathy, and well, who was it that said that? One of his relatives was giving the whole preach about how to feel it, and it's like, do you not see the irony in even the words that you're saying? You know, whenever we hear a supporter give one of those preachy talks, it so often is followed by then real emotion by a victim's relative. And it was no difference in this case. The contrast is always earth-shattering. Jerry couldn't do anything to protect himself and the sitter. He was an elderly guy. He couldn't do anything to help himself either. When Crane heard police were searching the hotel room Wednesday, he went by to help identify items he says he gave to Jerry. He says that includes shoes and clothing with police discovered in the room Wednesday. If they would have just asked for the things he took, he probably would have just given it to him. Crane says Jerry met Rosali randomly. He had just got out of jail and didn't have nowhere to go. Jerry, being the big-hearted guy that he was, allowed him to stay in there for a couple of weeks. How did they meet? I think it was just out and about because he always rode through the neighborhood in his wheelchair. It pains him to know that a man who couldn't care for himself, couldn't defend himself either. That's why I always worried about Jerry. I would say, Jerry, you can't talk to everybody and let everybody in your house when you can't protect yourself. And finally, it came back to bite him. From April 24th, when Shreveport firefighters arrived at the scene, in terrace apartments, 2 burned bodies inside the apartments 120 made it apparent that this was no ordinary fire. They were pulled outside, but there were some visible characteristics that were obvious to the firefighters that these were not deaths due to fire, but due to homicide nature. Police say items were missing in the apartment, and there were signs of a struggle. A car belonging to one of the victims was found abandoned on I-20. The owner has been identified. My brother has always had a problem with associations. He wouldn't really listen to the family when he talked to me about people he associated with, said his brother, who we saw today. I have seen him with some shady characters, says maintenance Philip Jenkins, manager of Fair Park Terrace Apartment, said they considered evicting Burns several times because of the stigma attached to putting a quadriplegic on the streets. That never happened. He required 24/7 care, said Robert. He described how Jerry became disabled, a testament to his troubled life. When he was young, before the age of 20, he was shot in the head with a .22 from behind, said Robert. Police say this time it looks like someone might have taken advantage of Jerry's disability, ending his troubled life and his life of his caretaker. He did have a troubled life. Wow. Shot in the head. You know, the hearing as well, it didn't make to hear that he's been in trouble, and that just everything about this hearing, right from the beginning, when you heard one of his supporters order 2 number 4s. I thought that was a perfect way to start off the hearing, and not to mention another diss. I bet you Derrick would very much want a number 4. But you know, we don't have other information. We don't have the court transcripts. We don't have, you know, because he took a plea deal, what involvement Derrick had. But from the sound of it, it sounds like he was pretty involved through the entire case. And it's just a brutal one. This one really hits home. It's painful in so many ways. It's so tragic, I think, and then the just the karma about it adds a whole new level. But thank you, Richard, for sharing the information, and I think with that, I'll let you go. Well, we're actually going to do another case that is similar in some ways. It's someone who's end of life. You could see him here in his bed taking this parole hearing. I haven't watched it yet, so we'll watch it together. But let's jump in.
Who is the VAC, and Billy Harrington with her, who's an ADA. This is a case for Shannon F DOC 399110. Date of birth is January 18, 1979. Classified as a first offender. Offenses is attempted forceful rape, armed robbery. Sentencing date is June 24th, 1998. Sentenced for attempted forceful rape, 20 years with DOC. Armed robbery is 40 years with DOC. These sentences were ordered to run concurrent. Parole date is not eligible. Good time is January 28, 2033. Full term is April 15, 2037. Is this information correct? Miss Pearl.
All right, thank you. A medical staff, could you update me, please, as to his status?
Let me get the nurse.
Okay, thank you. According to the records, he was moved to Villa on April the 5th of 2021 as a result of a compassionate release.
They said they want to know his medical status.
Hello.
Hi.
Tell us what's going on with Mr. Shannon. You've had him since April the 5th of 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just put some information on the record as to his medical status.
He's compliant with all of his medicines. He has high blood pressure. And he's on a lot of blood pressure medicines. And it's always high. We have some PRN medicine for him, and, you know, to bring it down. Steady with eye drops. He's no problem. That's
okay.
That's about it.
Okay. I realize with HIPAA, you know, there's some things you can't say. I realize that. Thank
Yes,
you, ma'am.
ma'am.
But I'm glad to hear he has been compliant since April and he hasn't given y'all any problems.
Oh, no, ma'am. No problem whatsoever.
And what level of care does he need? How much can he do on his own?
He cannot do anything. He can't do anything. He's total care.
All right.
He has to be fed, bathed, changed. Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
He has no function with his arms or legs. He can move them, but he's bedridden.
Got you. All right. Thank you so much. And call your name for the record, please.
Eula Brumfield.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brumfield.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Marabella?
I don't have any questions. I'd like to hear what anyone else has to say.
And I don't have any questions. Okay, at this time, Ms. Harrison, the DA's office, anything y'all like to say?
No, sir, we don't have anything to say at this time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. No one has anything to say. Is anyone else? At this time, board be voting, Ms. Pearl.
Yes, sir. I do want to state on the record that we received a communication from the victim, and the victim did indicate that she agrees with the parole, and that she hoped that his final days, be lived in rest and in peace. And I just wanted to state that for the record. My vote is to grant to the medical parole. This was approved by Department of Corrections Secretary and the Department of Corrections medical staff, and that he continue at the same location where he is, and that medical parole be granted due to the permanent nature of his medical conditions. And he also has a low tiger.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marabella.
My vote would be the same for the same reasons as Ms. Wise.
At this time, I'm gonna vote to grant that he continue at the Villa Nursing Facility in Jackson, Louisiana, on the same conditions stated as my colleague. I want to thank each and every one that's participated today. He has voted to grant to the nursing facility.
Well, this is just a really heavy day for hearings, isn't it? It was, we don't see often, we don't see many assistant district attorneys show up, so we can only imagine that this was a very severe crime, attempted sexual assault and armed robbery, which was what he pled to. We don't have any other information available. We couldn't find anything. But the ADA showed up and saw it, and she's like, no comment, which I am happy that she didn't make a comment. It would have been, it just wasn't the time. It was a bit ridiculous how the opening for the parole hearing started with that monotone voice, and she's like asking the offender to say his name in DOC. It reminded me like a South Park episode, just how ridiculous it was. And that's the same person who always tells the the victims, the survivors, to stop talking. We never see what she looks like, but she's always there in the background. And maybe she's not watching the screen, or maybe she's just totally clueless in general. It's quite bizarre. It's like, can you not read a room? Yeah, that is, I don't know what else to say. We can move to the next hearing. The next hearing is also heavy. I haven't seen it, but it's another case of someone being ill. I guess they're doing all of that today on their dockets. So here we go.
Do you understand the process, sir? Okay, this is the case for Derrick Dwayne Pickens, DOC 371462. Date of birth classified as a third offender. Offenses is manslaughter, attempted second-degree murder. Sentencing date is June 10th, 2013. Sentenced to manslaughter, 40 years. DOC to run consecutive. Attempted second-degree murder is 20 years. DOC to run consecutive. Parole date is June 3rd, 2063. Good time is April 19, 2063. Full term is June 3rd, 2072. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Marabella.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pickens, can you hear me okay? My name is Tony Marabella. I'm going to be asking you a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pickens, how old are you, sir?
41.
41?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been in prison?
7 years.
And how many years?
I think 7.
7 years, you believe?
7 or 9.
Okay. How long have you been incapacitated? How long have you been unable to move your limbs?
Last 6 years.
Since 2018. And how did that come about? Because of surgery?
I think so.
And in reviewing your record, I know you're here to determine whether or not we should give you a medical furlough, but I'm very much concerned about your history and what all you've done. Now, before you became paralyzed, it's my understanding that it was suggested that you take sex offender treatment. You refused to do that. Why?
I never refused to do that.
You never refused? Your record suggests that you did. Did you take any sex offender treatment?
No, sir.
Were you ever offered sex offender treatment?
No, sir.
Your last write-up was an aggravated sex offense in 2018, I believe. Is that right?
No, I do not recall.
I'm sorry?
No, I do not recall.
You don't recall that? What was your last write-up in 2018 about?
I don't remember.
You don't remember that? Is there something, does your condition affect your memory or your ability to recall things?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about this crime that you committed?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you recall about this crime.
I stabbed my girlfriend.
Do you remember why?
We got into
We have some medical there as well. May I speak with Ms. Park? Is Ms. Park still there? Hey, Ms. Park, how are you? Could you give us some information on Mr. Pickens? I've seen your video and I've read the reports, but I'd like to put on record what you can tell us today, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Pickens has been living in the skilled nursing unit for the last 3 years. The speech today that he's given you is more words than I've heard him speak in the whole 3 years, which is, I guess, why his voice is very weak.
Okay.
He essentially stays in the bed. He's a complete care. He has movement of this part of his arms, but his hands are contractured. He does require to be fed, turned in position. He's incontinent of urine and stool. He has to be dressed by the orderlies. He requires complete care. His condition.
And this has been going on for the last 2-3 years?
Yes, sir. He had a spinal cord compression. They attempted surgery of his neck, and it didn't work to improve his symptoms. So as a result, he's pretty much a quadriplegic. His condition will be permanent. He hasn't improved any in the last 3 or 4 years.
And it's unlikely that he will improve in the future?
Yeah, he will not improve.
Now, today, you've indicated that that's the most you've heard him talk in the last 2-3 years. Can I assume from that he doesn't give you guys any trouble? He's not obnoxious. He's not offensive in any way?
Not at all. He's always pleasant, even though he tends to be more of a flat effect where he doesn't necessarily smile. He doesn't necessarily communicate with the nurses, but he's always very pleasant and cooperative with everything we try to get him to do. He's never.
And based upon his condition and your medical information and all of the information that you have in conjunction with all the other medical people there, do you consider him to be a danger to anyone in the position he's in and the condition he's in now?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have.
Ms. Pearl?
I have no questions.
I have no questions except for one. I'd like Miss Parks. I'd like to say something to Miss Parks. Miss Parks, he would qualify for a residence plan at the Villa Feliciana Medical Complex.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Okay. Thank y'all very much.
I see that there are no further questions. Can we please hear from Sheila Jobert, who's the victim's mother? Please direct all your comments to the board, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Is she speaking? If she is, I can't hear her.
We can't hear her either.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Ms. Jobert, can you move closer to your speaker perhaps? Or to your microphone?
You can hear now?
We can hear you, but barely.
Okay, hold on. Hello?
That's a little better, but see if you can just speak as loud as you can for us, please.
Hello?
There you go.
Well, I'm sorry that I don't sympathize with Derrick because, my daughter was stabbed 81 times. That's a little overkill. At least his mother can see him. I can't see mine.
So I don't think he deserves parole. Yeah, what if his condition gets better and he's at home? You know, it's hard for me. I'm hurt right now. Just thinking that he might get out. I gotta go to the graveyard. That's all.
Thank you. Can we please now hear from Mr. Pickens, a brief statement before the board votes?
I'm sorry for what I did. No, I can't take it back. But I'm very sorry for what happened.
Okay, thank you very much. No other questions. Then Mr. Marabella will be voting.
I'd like to move to go into executive session for a few moments to discuss some confidential matters.
I second.
Mr. Marabella,
Yes.
Ms. Pearl,
Yes.
Mr. Wise.
Yes. Okay, at this time, the board's going to be voting, starting Mr. Tony Marabella.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Pickens, I have reviewed your file. I've reviewed all of your medical history. I have listened very intently to Ms. Jobert. And the crime that you committed is horrible. I'm not sure, you certainly have not served enough time for that crime. However, in looking at your medical issues, in looking at where you are today, and listening to Ms. Park, and reviewing the fact that you don't pose a threat to anyone, and your institutional conduct has been really good since you've been in the condition you're in. And also taking into account that a prison is primarily for rehabilitation and security issues. A prison's primary goal is that. It's not medical. Whereas a facility such as the one at Feliciana that you are hoping to go to, Villa Feliciana Medical Complex, is primarily for medical. In my opinion, you're going to be in prison in your condition wherever you are. Based upon your medical condition, based upon the overriding medical that I have from Ms. Park, as well as the records that have been presented to me, it would be my vote today to grant a medical furlough specifically to Villa Feliciana Medical Complex. And at any point in time that you improve your condition or your condition is better, I would want to be able to have the authorities review that. And once you get in a position where you've improved sufficiently, return you to Angola. That would be my vote today.
Okay. Ms. Pearl Wise.
Young man, I too, sympathize with your medical situation and all that's taking place. I see your case a little differently. My vote is deny. There's law enforcement opposition and the victim's opposition that's been expressed here today, as well as insufficient time served on the 60-year sentence. That is my vote, sir.
At this time, I'm going to vote to grant to his residence plan be at the Villa Feliciana Medical Complex at 5006 Highway 10, Jackson, Louisiana. Also, that he was to be there placed at the lockdown area of the Feliciana Medical Center. And at any time he was to get better, he is to be returned back to LSP. Thank you very much. The board today has voted to deny. Thank you.
Wow. So it makes a big difference, right? When the victim's mother comes on and then states something that I think we all needed to know. He stabbed her 81 times. 81. It's they didn't get into how this happened, how he became in the condition that he's in now. And we had again that robot voice in the back. Now we're going to bring on the victim's mother. You have 5 minutes to speak. Don't address the victim, the inmate. And it's like, God, I hate whoever that is just has some serious problems. I can't. It's it looked like he was wiping away a tear there. I don't know if he was, but can you imagine if this was like a movie and he did a speed roll and one moment he has a girlfriend, he's living his life, and the next moment he's stabbing her 81 times, and then he flash forwards and he's sitting in Angola, unable to move, unable to talk, unable to really do anything, and he's just sitting there trying to get out of parole. And like if you were to fast forward this like a movie on quick play, it would just be he would say, how did he end up here? How is this possible? I was surprised Miss Y denied, really, but it's interesting. She sometimes surprises us. She heard her. I see a lot of your comments. Some of you say, "Well, she's really not as light on inmates as we think." She has a jolly approach and asks how you're doing, but doesn't always vote to let them out. I'm not sure. I haven't kept track of the voting, but man, this was a tough one. This was a tough few cases. Really, really hits home. Oof. But with that, I'll let you go.
Classified as a second felony offender. Offenses: manslaughter and distribution of hydrocodone. Sentencing date: April 20th, 1995. Revoked on February 20th, 2019. And on February 20th, 2019. Sentenced to 30 years at hard labor with DOC and 10 years at hard labor with DOC. Parole date is November 13, 2021. Good time is December 27, 2022. Full term is October 15, 2033. Is this information correct?
Yes,
Mr. Marabello?
Thank you very much. Mr. Green, my name is Tony Marabella. I'm going to be asking you a few questions today. How old are you, Mr. Green?
45.
And how long have you been in prison?
This time here, 4 years and 4 months.
And what are you currently in prison for right now?
I played out to the distribution of hydrocodone, Schedule 2.
Are you a drug dealer or are you a drug addict?
I sold.
I'm sorry?
I sold drugs, not a user. I sold.
You're not a user. Have you ever used drugs?
No hard drugs. The only thing I pretty much ever used was marijuana.
I'm having trouble hearing you, sir. Could you get maybe closer to the microphone or speak louder?
I apologize. No hard drugs. The only thing I've ever pretty much used is marijuana.
And when did you use marijuana?
Just periodically. I mean, it's not a consistent thing.
Okay. Tell me about this manslaughter offense. Tell me what your role was in that case.
Well, I was young at the time, and I was some friends of mine got off into the wrong thing with a plan to go rob somebody, and it turned out to be another person other than who we initially thought it was. And me and another guy figured we had backed out the deal in a timely manner, but he had to steal the individual who actually did the shooting. When he didn't try to rob the person, ended up killing him. So he ended up pleading out to a life sentence to avoid the death penalty, and I pleaded out to a man.
Mr. Green, you were also arrested in 1993 for aggravated rape. It was reduced to a sexual battery. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that was a charge that came about after the fact. To this day, I can't even really explain to you how it happened because it's something that never really happened. I'm not going to play the victim, but it's something that never even took place in. So that was part of a deal. It wasn't played. The first degree murder wasn't played down to a sexual battery. It was an aggravated rape that played down to a sexual battery.
I understand that, and that's what I said. You were charged with aggravated rape. It was reduced to sexual battery, and you pled guilty to it. So tell me the facts of that case. Those are two separate instances. The murder was in September of 1993, and the aggravated rape was in November of 1993.
Yes, sir. Again.
So tell me what happened in the rape charge.
Being the muscle, I was an intimidator in the whole situation with some other guys that was in the jail. And again, another guy ended up pleading out to a different charge, and by my participation in it, I ended up pleading out to a lesser charge.
Okay. And when did you first get out on the manslaughter charge?
I was initially released in 2009. I did 16 years, 1 month, 15 days. I had a 10-year sentence that was running concurrent with the manslaughter charge, which from 93 to 2003, that was the 10 years. And from 2003 to 2013, it was pulled from my initial prison record as a conviction, but it still stays on my master prison record as a state conviction though. So I haven't, it's been 20 plus years for either charge.
And how many times have you been revoked since you've been out on the manslaughter charge?
Once I had a misdemeanor charge, which I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I had a misdemeanor charge. I served 15 days for marijuana. And I guess the compact agreement is pretty much fairly new, because anytime you had any discrepancy with law enforcement, they always put on your rap sheet absconded. So when I was initially extradited back to Louisiana, it was for the simple fact they thought I had absconded. But then when they noticed that I hadn't absconded, that I was actually living in Nashville, be an interstate compact. It, instead of violating it for absconding, they told me to complete a drug treatment program. So, and they would release me. So once I completed the drug treatment program, that's when they released me back out.
Well, what got you back into selling drugs?
Honestly, stupidity, you know.
Well, you went to prison for a long time. Did you learn anything while you were in prison?
Well, yes, sir. I didn't learn what I thought I learned. You know, I pretty much grew up in prison. You know, I spent half my life up in there. So I was dealing with a lot of things that I wasn't familiar with as far as mental illness. You know, I was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder in 2014 and depression. I started taking meds. I knew about it, but I never really understood it. So, like I said, I went through some things, you know, during the last time I was incarcerated for a violation. My brother passed at 14, and my grandmother passed at 15. Here's for the reason why I didn't go back to Nashville. I was kind of on a hiatus. My son was in the service at the time. You know, I was really just going through a spiral, going down. And so I would say it was a means to an end, just to be off involved in something. But again, it was just me losing my focus.
What programs have you taken in prison that you think, since you've been in prison for the last 4.5 years, what programs have you taken that have been the most important to you?
To me, I feel as though, you know, anger management, as far as rage, and inside outside dads, because I have 3 kids for, you know, 3 separate women, and my last 2 are girls. 1 is 4, 1 just turned 7, and my oldest, my son, will be 28 on the 29th. I watched my babies. Both of my 2 girls were born while I was in prison. And this last year, being away from them with the pandemic being what it is, you know, not really certain when I would see them again, if I would see them again, you know, not knowing what I would say to them, if I did say anything to them, because I didn't want them to be alive. You know, I just came to just cope with a lot of things differently as an individual, as a parent. So
what about substance abuse programs? Have you taken any classes or any programs on substance abuse?
Yes, sir. I've taken,
well, you don't need to look them up. Just tell me what you learned about them.
Well, again, I've never really been a substance abuser, but you know, it was just the attraction.
Okay, well, let me slow you down. Did you learn anything in those classes about what you did to those people that you sold the drugs to?
Yes, sir.
You tell me about that then. Tell me what you learned. I didn't ask you whether you learned anything about your own substance abuse. My question is, what have you learned while you've been in prison about substance abuse and what your role has been in people's substance abuse problems?
Well, instead of helping their situations, I realized that I was hurting their situation, not just them, but their families.
How old are your children?
My oldest will be 28 on the 29th. My baby girl just turned 7 on the 9th. Well, my middle girl just turned 7 on the 9th, and my baby girl.
To your knowledge, do they do drugs? Are they drug addicts?
No, sir.
What if they were? What would you want to do to the person that sold them the drugs?
I couldn't even fathom what I would do. And that's one of the
Yet
things.
you were doing that.
I was.
So tell me what you learned in prison about what your drug dealing has done to other people.
I destroyed people. I helped destroy families. You know, I helped bring them down instead of bringing them up. You know, kept mothers from their daughters, kept fathers from their sons, you know, kept brothers from their sisters. I mean, and it was wrong, and I knew it was wrong.
Now you told me earlier when I asked you, why'd you go back to drug dealing? You said kind of stupid and wasn't thinking and all of those things. Why did you go back to dealing drugs? Was it because of money? I mean, what kind of job did you have?
I'm a professional barber. And I wasn't making, when I come back to Winslow, Louisiana, I admit I wasn't making the money that I was accustomed to making when I was living there. You know, you go from making $1,000 to $1,500 a week to making, you know, barely $500 a week. You know, so I mean, again, it was a means to the end, and it wasn't the best choice. And as a matter of fact, at the time when I got locked up, March the 3rd, on March the 2nd, I had just opened up a barbershop outside of the area where a lot of drug trafficking was, in hopes of continuously pulling myself away from that type of activity. And not even 4 days later, I was arrested on these charges. So it's not like the effort wasn't being placed forth to deviate from the situation. It was, but again, the mistake had already been made.
Well, what you indicated that you've been diagnosed with an antisocial personality disorder. Are you taking any kind of medication? Are you doing any kind of treatment or any kind of therapy for that?
Done treatment for that, and I once was on Seroquel, but now I'm on Celexa. And so with that, reading my word on a regular basis and meditating and just kind of limiting my activities and everything with the social crowd, I mean, I'm doing pretty good.
What can you say to me as a person who needs to decide whether or not I'm going to release you back out into the public? What can you say to me that can assure me that you're not going to go back to dealing drugs? You're not going to go back to poisoning people, as you would not want something like that to happen to your children. How can you assure me that you're not going to do that? If you get out, times are bad, you can't get a job, things are tough, you go back to your old normal ways, how can you assure me that's not going to happen again?
I can't tell you anything that you probably haven't heard before, and I'm not going to throw no shade. I could tell you that I can promise on a stack of Bibles that I wasn't going to do it. Every promise that I've made in the past has just been for the now, for the moment. But I realized that the moment is going to be what it is. The future is what's important. My babies, the promises I could make to them, I made to myself towards them. I watched my son grow up in prison. He was a month old when I initially got locked up on the first charge. My baby girls, I've chosen not to talk to them because if they ask me, when am I coming to see them, when daddy go talk to them again, I don't want to make it a habit like I did with my son and make it seem as though I'm lying to him, whether it be directly or indirectly. Am I coming back to prison? I know I'm not, because I mean, emotionally, mentally, I can't. It's not even about me. It's about my kids. My nieces and nephews. I know my mother. I don't have anything else to do. But
Mr. Green, I hear what you're saying, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I believe you as you sit there today. Being in a structured environment is a lot different than being back out on the streets. Tell me what you understand about what your diagnosis means to you. What does that mean to you? What are the deficits that come with that diagnosis? Do you know that?
Well, placing myself in their situation purposely, I'm still learning. I'm a work in progress. And that's all I do every day is read and study.
Do you agree that that's a serious diagnosis?
Yes, sir. And I,
Tell me your plan when you get out to work on that diagnosis. What do you have in place? What are you hoping to be able to do to be able to keep that diagnosis and your concerns in check?
I am honestly going to outpatient treatment. I have information and everything. Again, I'm going back to Tennessee. I have information. I know the areas. I know the right people to contact. And I'm not going to stop working on it. Again, not just for the sake of even for my kids. So I wouldn't want to be somebody that's not fully in control, trying to talk to my babies about being fully in control. So I want to be able to actually be practicing what I preach, because that's the biggest thing. They look up to me, they're gonna keep looking up to me. So, I'm gonna work on me. Because I have a lot going on. I accomplished a lot. So
you have accomplished a lot while you've been in prison. Mr. Green, you have a medium risk, which is not good. Certainly prefer to see a low risk. You have law enforcement opposition, which is nothing you can do about it, but I want to let you know that that's a fact. You've got victim opposition, which of course is likewise a concern. I have a question of you because in reading your report, I'm not sure what the answer is. In looking at your master prison record, it says you have 72 write-ups, but on the sheet, the conduct sheet, it only shows 1. So how many write-ups have you had since you've been in prison?
Prior or now?
Well, I tell me, you've been in prison now for a little over 4 years, is that right?
Yes, sir.
How many write-ups have you had since you've been in prison for the last 4 years?
Well, I've only been here a little over a year. I've been in parish jails, but I haven't had any write-ups since I've been here.
Okay, so, but your 72 write-ups have been the whole time you've been in prison?
That was during my 16 years when I was young, when I first came in, a lot of fights and everything. Okay.
Warden, can you tell us anything about Mr. Green?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. He's had 1 write-up, not since he's been with us, but since he's been back incarcerated. That was 2019 for a fight. But since he's been with us in 2020, just 1. No disciplinary reports on the record. He's taking some good programming, substance abuse, inside out dads. He's not a disciplinary problem. He does what's required of him in here. Like you say, in a structured environment, he seems to do pretty well.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have.
All right, Ms. Wise.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Green, it looks like, according to our classification, you are eligible for work release. Is that something you think you could try?
Yes, ma'am. I had applied for it once before, but for some reason, they told me that I wasn't eligible.
Oh, okay. Warren, can you clarify that for us?
What was that again, Ms. White?
About work release. It shows he's work release eligible on a master.
Oh, that's probably medical clear too. Work release for clear. That's what that means.
So he's been cleared by medical, but not by headquarters yet.
Okay. So it is okay. That is pending. Okay. All right, then I'm glad to hear that at least that you are interested in it, and your barber skill is the only trade that you have.
No, ma'am. I've worked pretty much off and on all my life. I've done construction work. I've worked for Surf Pro doing flood relief. That was in Nashville in 2010.
Okay.
I did warehouse management and everything. like stocking and inventory, short cooking and baking.
Okay. So what do you do? What do you do at the prison now? What's your job now?
Well, I was once in the kitchen, then I went to the barbershop for a short period of time. Now I'm a dorm rep. I clean up the dorms and everything. Keep the dorms clean.
Okay, so you don't cut hair at all at the prison now?
Well, I was, but I just wanted to kind of change the atmosphere. Like I said,
Yeah, because I saw they said you kept the barbershop really clean when you were in it.
Yeah, I did. I did my part. Again, it just kind of. I didn't really. I was doing classes and everything was still kind of locked down. So I was getting classes. I was doing like 2 or 3 classes a week, and so it got kind of overwhelming. They're just trying to keep up with the schedule and stuff, working and doing the classes. So I just kind of needed to change the atmosphere so I could have more time to go ahead and complete my classes. Do a little meditation, keep doing a little self-meditation.
Okay, all right, that's all I had. Thank you, sir.
All right, now we're here for Miss Estelle. Miss Estelle, I think you're on mute.
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Yes.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
I oppose him. I think he should do his full sentence.
All right. Thank you very much. Miss Maria,
Yes,
go ahead and make your statement.
yes, I oppose so that he serve his full sentence. I don't think that he should get out because I don't have my dad anymore. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. All right. Would you like to make a statement on your behalf? Mr. Green? Go ahead and make your statement.
I knew Mr. Jimmy. I knew Miss Maria. I knew Miss Estelle. They were like my aunties growing up. They're my late brother's family. My brother's, Estelle's brother, my brother's father was my first dad before I even knew my own father. No, I can't bring Mr. Jimmy back. Mr. Jimmy took care of me. He was like a grandfather to me again before I knew my own grandfather. Like I said, it's no excuse. But when that happened, I lost a part of me just as much as they lost a part of them. It's not the same because it's their blood, but when that person is the only person you know as a grandfather, and you don't even know your own grandfather, my pain mirrors there. I can apologize 1,000 times over. Me and my brother were at ends for years. His family, disconnected from him because of this crime. And I just hate the day that ever took place. And I'm sorry for him. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. All right, is the panel prepared to vote?
Yes.
Mayor Bello?
Thank you. Mr. Green, I do want to commend you for the work that you're doing. You're working hard. I think you're moving in the right direction. I'm very concerned about your criminal history. You've been in prison on several occasions. you've committed some very serious offenses in the past, been involved in very serious offenses in the past. Out on parole, you get revoked again. Now, you indicated that there were some issues about absconding. You've got some absconding issues on your record, but you've kind of explained those, that you were out of town and those sorts of things. You have law enforcement opposition, victim opposition. You're a moderate risk, which is not something that I'm very pleased with. I'd love to see a lower risk. I think you need some more programs. I think you need to take courses like Thinking for a Change to kind of help you look at what you've done. I think that I appreciate your honest answer to me about what your drug dealing has done to people. I don't know that you really thought about that before today, but I do appreciate your comments. I hope you can continue to keep working as hard as you can. But right now, I'm just not willing to take a chance on you. My vote would be to deny today, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Ms. Wise.
Mr. Green, I do commend you as well on the 540 days of programs. I do think you had a better place in your life than you've been in a long time, and I commend you on that. But today, I would like to see you take the victim awareness programs. I don't see any of that completion on your record. So my vote is to deny as well. I concur with my colleague, the moderate tiger, and based on your supervision history, which has not been all that well, and the victim opposition and the law enforcement opposition, there are concerns. But continue to do well. You have a good time date, and I want the family to know that you do have a good time date that's coming up in 2022.
All right, thank you. I have 2 votes to deny. I'm also going to vote to deny for the same reasons as stated. So 3 votes to deny. Today, your parole's been denied. Good luck to you.
All right, appreciate you.
You know, what's interesting to me is that after seeing all those hearings before this, he almost seemed like a breath of fresh air for a second. It's like, wow, he's actually having a conversational interview. It's not. And then you're reminded of what he did, and then you're reminded that he's diagnosed as antisocial thinking, which makes me, frankly, I just can't believe anything that I hear from him. Once I hear that, that's the clinical term for, what is it? Sociopath. Like I can't trust what he's saying. I just feel I'm being manipulated. I mean, if you Google it, it's ASPD, anti-personality disorder. It's a mental health condition that can affect the way you think and interact with others and lead you to manipulate or deceive people, exploit or take advantage of someone else for your own benefit, disregard the law or the rights of other people. And, it's interesting because even with his best effort, he still, in my opinion, makes the mistake, although he may have caught it at the end, of saying, when I took his life, it was, what did he say? It was as bad for me as it was for them. It's like, how dare you? You took their father away, and you're trying to compare your suffering with their suffering. The next thing is that the victims, you can still see, they're still distraught. They're still suffering. And you have, of course, Brian Kelsey. Okay, thank you. Good. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So, I never get, it's, and this is why it's so important that an assistant district attorney show up. They need to be there in support of the victims in this case, so that they're not there alone. The next thing that kind of stuck out to me was the situation where, he had sexually assaulted another inmate when he was in jail, and he claimed that he was just the muscle man there, and maybe he was, I don't know, but this is the information that Richard found, and it says the other 2 defendants admitted to going to Hall Davenport's house. They're talking about the homicide case, I think, that he's in for. Hall's attorney has since asked the Sanity Commission to be appointed to examine Hall to see if he's mentally competent to stand trial. Green, meanwhile, is also facing a charge for aggravated sexual assault. He's accused of sexually assaulting an inmate after being arrested on the murder charge. So he gets arrested on the murder charge, goes to jail, and this is what they say. So whether you want to believe him, what he told Mr. Marabella, or believe that, he said, oh, well, he took the plea down because he was the muscle man. Either way, he was involved in it, so I don't care. And man, that's just scary stuff, right? But he has his good time date, and he is out, and he hasn't gotten in trouble, right? He's yeah, he is out. Although he's not, he hasn't gotten back in trouble, and he's not in Louisiana. So don't worry, Louisiana. But there we go. And yeah, today's hearings have certainly been depressing, to say the least. Quite sad, but it's an important part to steer the system, right? I think that we probably saw hearings we haven't seen before quite yet. Well, yeah, that was my call to go. My son just came home from school. So with that, I will let you go.